welcome guys to the Improvement Season podcast with me, Pascal Flo, and on the other end, it is Steve Hall. Hello Steve, how are you doing, mate?
I am good. I'm very good. Although I did not sleep particularly well last night. And then I asked Charlotte if she slept well, and she also said she could barely sleep because she was having stomach pains. So
what did you do?
I think her not sleeping well caused me not to sleep well. You know, when sometimes you're just not sure, you're like, why can't I sleep? Yeah. So apart from that, I'm a bit utopiaed up, which is helping me a little bit now. But apart from that, I'm good. I've been getting some killer pumps in some workouts. Just
Sounds good.
My AM hamstring work. I've got a tan because Cornwall was unbelievably sunny this weekend. For me, this is tanned. And actually, my sister sent me a message. This is really funny.
Crabs tan.
So apparently my mum said to my sister, I saw a picture of Stephen on Facebook today, and he was looking really good. He had nice hair, he was tanned, and he was looking really muscular. Yeah, from my mum said this to my sister, because my sister's still at home.
Why didn't she tell it to you then?
Yeah, my sister was like, you need to text Stephen this.
Yeah. I'm always a big proponent of actually telling people or giving them a compliment, because it's actually a rare thing.
It's lovely.
Right? Especially people that are close to you, telling them like, you know what, I really do respect you, for example, because this is hardly ever the case, because we take it for granted that the other person knows what we think about them or feel about them. Most of the time, it's actually then forgotten, especially like when you are sometimes even fighting, right? It's becoming less and less over time, and I think that it's a beautiful thing actually letting someone know what you truly think and feel about them.
It is, and it's something I need to be better at. I always find it hard to be like, I don't know, saying someone looks good, or I don't know, I find giving compliments hard. I feel like I'm being like, I don't know, creepy, or I don't know what it is.
But I mean, they also need to come from an honest place.
Yeah.
Because you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it or to flatter them, even though that you don't really mean that seriously. Good. Like, you look good, and in the back of your mind, you think like, man, you look like a piece of shit, bastard. So yeah, you actually want to mean it seriously, and because of that, sometimes you don't really even think or consider that as well. So sometimes it's just like, oh, looks good here today. I guess I should have told her or so. I think it's actually a nice gesture to do every once in a while.
100%. So yeah, I've got a bit of a tan. I was well surprised. Like, it was just 2 days in the sun. It was, I don't know about how it was in Germany. I think it was pretty hot over there as well. We just had sun. I got a little bit burnt, to be honest. Only a little bit, not bad.
No, it was really warm. Now I do remember, because it was the I want to say Christmas, but it was the Easter weekend. We've been out for an Easter egg hunt, and it was really warm in the garden because it was kind of a little bit secured there, so no wind is actually coming in there, and we were just sitting there. I was sweating my balls off. So,
yeah, that's how it was. And because Bude is like there's a beach there and everything, it's appropriate to be walking around with your top off. So I was shirtless and everything, so I got a bit of a full body tan, which was quite nice.
Haven't you been to Perth once?
Perth? I don't think we've been to Perth.
Oh, I thought that this was the place where you've been to when you went over to Australia.
We went to Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Not Perth.
Okay. Yeah, so the typical sceneries. Yeah, just wanted to ask, is the Bude beach more beautiful than the Perth beach? Because as last time we've discussed and heard from Ariana, the London girl, the London musician, that Perth got the most beautiful beaches, and maybe you could have been the judge on that one as well.
No, but we went. What's the beach in Sydney? I always forget what it's called. The like really popular beach. I come across like such an idiot, especially when last time or recently I said Pavlov's dogs or Maslow's dogs. I was saying it's Pavlov, and I just can't remember.
You, right? It does hunt you.
It's
funny enough, though. So I looked it up as well, but didn't really look into that. But right now, I'm reading Behave from Robert Sapolsky.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what it is with Robert Sapolsky, but I already did love Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Yeah.
And the way he writes, and I don't know, something is about his writing style that I really do love. That's why I decided to give Behave a go. And funny enough, he brought up Pavlov's dog there. I didn't really go into depth about it, but I just read it there and it was like, oh, yeah, so now I see it probably all the time when it's somewhere.
So where was I? I can't remember now. Oh, yeah, the beach was beautiful. Got a tan, trained in Bude's Mecca, the South Mecca, Bude Gym, which is just, actually, I love it. It was brilliant. It has a hack squat, has like a lovely leg press, has machines. Like, it was absolutely not expected in a little place like Bude.
Yeah,
so
Mecca.
Yeah, literally. So really enjoyed that. Dirty old plates. I was like, I seriously want to buy this. I want to do it up and live in Bude now.
Maybe you can at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually want to go to Bude.
Guys, if you want to support us, up in the corner you will find a link to the Patreon support or donation if you want to. So if you want to actually provide some money for Steve to be able to purchase that gym at some point, you would then be granted access to that gym once for free. You get a free day pass. So yeah, go ahead, donate over at Patreon so that we can actually make that dream come true.
If Bude had better transport links, I'd be like pretty keen. It's just an awful place to try and get to.
Is it?
Yeah, there's no trains or anything that goes there. We get a 2-hour train from Paddington to Exeter, and then we get picked up by her dad, Charlotte's dad from Exeter, and then it's an 1.5-hour journey to Bude from there. So it's not the easiest place to get to. So if I did buy it, we'd have like very few people coming to visit, unless you're coming to Bude for holiday, it is a pretty place.
Is it like a place where most of the English people are doing holiday?
I don't know if most, but they certainly come to Cornwall in general, but it's very touristy. That's where they get like majority of their income. It is kind of
so in Germany, we have like the Baltic Sea, obviously, right on the East Coast. And this is just such a typical place for German people to do holiday. It's like, why aren't you leaving Germany? I don't get it. I mean, they always argument with the fact that it's close, it's beautiful, you don't have to get on the plane or stuff like that. We know it, right? But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's funny that people don't get really out of their country because, I don't know.
It's all about saving emissions now.
Yes, definitely.
We have global warming. If it's ever seemed apparent, the fact that I was wearing, the weekend before last was like freezing cold, and I was wearing like jumpers and hoodies and like hats, and then this weekend is like shorts and didn't even need a top. It's just like,
the thing is though, so in general, global warming is kind of, I would say, a terrifying and terrible thing because so many islands will just disappear at some point. But some other countries will definitely benefit, especially like Russian terrain, with everything there. As long as not all the methane that is kept in the ground is actually released, and then the entire planet gets toxic, it will probably flourish because of the climate. But yeah, it's like everything in life, right?
Yeah.
When other people are suffering, some will benefit from that, especially like in an open market. That's especially true.
And on a softer touch, have you eaten any chocolate eggs?
No, I haven't. No, I'm not. So I had one bite of a chocolate rabbit, which Hugo found, but that's, I don't know what it is, but like candy or sweets is simply not for me anymore. And I don't count something like ice cream to candy or sweets. I don't know if that's really justifiable, but like just a piece of chocolate doesn't give me much. I don't know what it is.
It's funny, we got given a celebration egg, and I'm like, Charlotte, you have the egg, I'll have all the little celebrations, because I much prefer to have those. And they're nicely portioned out, and when you're trying to keep the high-carb, low-fat diet going along, it doesn't really work having a whole Easter egg, so I didn't eat any whole Easter eggs either, but we did get given 3. And I kind of hope that my mum hasn't got any like at home for some weird reason waiting to give to me as well, because this is the sort of thing she would do, just like hold them, and like 2 months later I'll go home and they're like, here's your eggs.
So is it in England also a thing to eat a lot of asparagus or what? Asparagus? What's it called in English?
Asparagus, like the green vegetable.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, not at all.
So there's asparagus like green and also a white one.
Yeah,
and white is a little bit more. I don't know, a little bit more special thing, right? Especially like the top of it, and it's just a typical thing during that time of the year that the fancy people are going out and buying asparagus, and so we had some for the Easter dinner, and God, it's awful. I mean, it's awful. I don't get the hype around it.
Peak week protocol is asparagus, mate.
especially like the time afterwards when you are about to pee. Your pee smells so badly, and it's disgusting. I felt as if experienced something like food poisoning, right? You had a particular meal of food, and you can't eat it afterwards for a specific amount of time because the body just doesn't want it anymore, right? Because it now connotates that it was toxic. And the same applies to me and asparagus. I had it. Taste-wise, it's kind of neutral, right? Without a sauce, it's just like plain and mundane. But afterwards, my piss stank so much that it made me actually sick, and I don't want to eat that anymore.
No, we don't have asparagus. We have hot cross buns. Do you have hot cross buns? Did you have any hot cross buns?
No.
No, fuck.
Just potatoes, asparagus, and sauce hollandaise.
And some bunny rabbit ears.
And some bunny rabbit ears. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's all we had. So, and yeah, not the biggest fan of that.
I've got one question for you, Pascal, because we don't often talk about it, but I think it's kind of maybe interesting for clients, because I know you've got one of your clients going through peak week right now. She's doing bikini, right? So I'm not sure there's much peaking going on, but I've had a couple of clients compete already this season. Just be interesting to hear what's going on your end. Competitors, how many have you got at the moment? Where are they? I don't know if people are interested in this.
Yeah, I have a couple of competitors who do their first show actually this year.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Especially help them get there and especially prepare them for what's to come and get them ready on time, because I think that a lot of first-time competitors underestimate of how long it takes for them to actually get ready. But for most of the clients I've been working with who are stepping on stage this year for the first time, I've been working with them already before that. So we brought them into a really good position before that, and now they just have to, get closer and closer to that. For example, Morgan, funny enough, we didn't really see any kind of significant weight loss over the first 4 weeks. It's kind of the same thing that happened to you.
Happens a
first
lot.
4 weeks, but also because same as you, he was already quite lean to begin with, right? And then we officially started the contest prep, and the weight didn't really budge. And we've actually made the adjustments on a week-to-week basis in regards to the macros, because I want to push it at the beginning when you still have the capacity and you can actually push it a little bit harder, right? So we actually made the adjustments on a week-to-week basis, and the weight didn't move, didn't budge. But visually, so much changed already, and he hasn't a lot to lose, right? So he's now, I think, 14 weeks out, so still plenty of time actually to really get him shredded. And he's not the biggest guy, so I mean, relatively speaking, he has a decent amount of muscle mass, but because he needed to undergo TRT, he can't compete naturally. And because of that, I'm saying he's not the biggest guy, because in comparison probably to some of his competitors, he will lack muscle mass. But the good thing is you can always make that up with conditioning, right? Especially when people are intentionally taking drugs. Sometimes you can really outperform them in regards to conditioning when they are holding on to a lot of water and you are the only one with striated glutes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that will pop out and will make the judges look at you, right? And this is what we are aiming for. When it then comes to Amalie, for example, she will have her first show now this Saturday. By the time
is it in? Is it PCA?
What was it again? It was a smaller show. I totally forgot about the federation on that one. I have to look it up. What we are aiming for is a UKDF base show later this year as well. because I also said to her, okay, it's the first time that you're stepping on stage. We just don't only want to do one show. At least I would recommend people to not only do one show, because the first show will always be like in and out, and you will not have noticed it whatsoever because you've been in that tunnel vision zone, right? And for her, first show now, 2 days out. In regards to the peak, we don't do anything crazy. She's a bikini competitor, right? You don't want to do anything stupid, anything crazy. What we have been doing is just a short period of depletion, 3 days, and now then we've loaded her up, 4 days out, just a little bit, then tapering the carbohydrates down again into the show, and then she should look ready, but nothing crazy there. Just also from a psychological perspective, that she is feeling more energetic, more fresh. This is also one of the main reasons why I'm still doing somewhat of a peak week for bikini athletes. And also, she is a first-time competitor in regards also to her muscle maturity. She's also fairly young, so it's not like she has veins overall, super muscle maturity overall. So where a peak week, so a more aggressive peak week or something a little bit more manipulative would make massive sense, right? So yeah, that's going down first show. And then once the first show is done for her, I think a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the unknown has dissipated then, and then we are ready for preparing for the next show, and we have plenty of time to actually then really take it to the next level. I told her, yes, I want you to take the first show seriously, but I also want you to enjoy yourself first and foremost, and take it somewhat as a warm-up show. This is the preparement show for the UKDFPA then.
Yeah, I think it's really good advice. I always like my competitors to do more than one show, because typically the first one just doesn't ever go how you kind of want it to. Like loads of things you do first time, it's kind of like, it's a bit awkward and comfortable. You don't really know what's going on, all of that. So it'll be great experience for her.
Absolutely.
That's super exciting though. And I agree with bikini. I mean, a lot of the time it's mostly stress management and making sure they feel alive on stage and not like drawn out and looking kind of deathly.
And most of the time they don't have the level of conditioning where they have like paper thin skin with striations and glutes, where a peak week makes like proper sense or so. The risk for bikini athlete, in my opinion, to spill over and then look worse is actually higher than actually really have a super successful peak, right? Where the difference is still marginal visually because they still carry somewhat of a body fat percentage or level that still mitigates it or hides it underneath it all.
The only person I've ever had to purposely spill over was Lisa, because she just got lean very quickly out of nowhere. She's always been super lean, so literally had to purposely spill her over, and she looked much better spilled because she had softer glutes and that sort of thing, and that's exactly what you need for bikini. You don't want kind of quad striations and any glute lines. Well, you want some kind of the glute ham tie-in as it is, but not like, I know exactly what you're saying. So
yeah, and then by the way, just to give him a shout out, because he always sells himself short, and that is a Zima man. When
that huge
people
bugger.
when people are following me for a while now, I every once in a while post about a tattooed guy, right? And we have gone through cyclical phases of gaining and cutting. Right now, he has ended his last cutting phase.
He's lean.
Which was just a mini cut, right? It was just a mini cut, and he has already feathering on his quads and all that kind of stuff. And so this is just a perfect example. I don't know. I don't mind actually saying that on the podcast, because these are things I discussed with him as well and said to his face as well, that he has a screwed perception of what it actually is that competitors look like on stage and what he has already, because muscle mass will not be the problem for him. Not at all. Not at all. He has such a muscle maturity already, such a thickness, and you know that. You've met him in real life, in person, right? He is a smaller individual, but fuck, he's big.
And he'd be lightweight anyway, won't he? So
yeah,
he'll look huge.
Yeah, and he's worrying about like, will I have enough muscle mass? And I'm always like saying, buddy, this isn't something that you need to worry about. Like, honestly, you are worrying about things that are already first and foremost present, and you are not focusing on things that may be hindering you. That is not the muscle mass. That may be something like that, because you've never gotten down to those lean levels, and we don't know whether you actually can achieve that, right? Because yes, everyone is saying like everyone can get down to lean levels. But I'm not entirely certain about the truth behind it, because being really competitive, and especially like I know he wants to be one of the best, that just requires you to get to a level of leanness that I don't think everyone is capable of achieving.
I think there's a lot of people think it's just hard work and mindset, and I think that carries you a long way. I think there's a genetic component there. I think some people just find, like Alberto Nunez, like he works himself into the ground and everything, but he can get very dirty lean, and I think there is some sort of genetic component. Obviously, he can diet on a lot of food. I think that helps.
So I think that there's a ratio, like simplistically said, psychological to physiological ratio of the limit will always be the psychology. That's for sure, right? But when does the physiology exceed a certain threshold that the psychology then takes over, right? So there is kind of that I don't know, a scale, right? A balance. And at some point, the psychology will take over. And for some people, that may be physiologically seen earlier than for others. So just from a leanness perspective, for some people, they will already experience psychological issues at like 10% body fat levels or so, right? For some people, it will first start happening when they are getting to those really nasty levels of leanness, right? So I think that there's kind of a ratio that probably kicks in, and that brings us back to the genetic component. When is your psychology actually taking over, and not the physiology that is then kind of holding you back or fighting against you? Because at first, it's the physiology that is fighting against you. Yes, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but everyone can then do that. But at some point, the negative adaptations on your psychology will take over, and that is for other people more severe and sooner than for others.
And I think there's something to be said too. I remember talking to Mike Israetel about it in terms of people talk about muscle maturity, and he was like, I'm not sure if that's a thing, and more so the fact that experienced competitors have got lean very like several times, and so they're able to kind of get that last bit of body fat off each time, and it just comes off easier because the body's used to getting there. So I think it's quite hard. And actually someone asked me on my Instagram yesterday, I think, and I didn't actually answer the question, but I can kind of talk to it now. They're like, is someone as a first-time competitor, are they able to get the pro level of conditioning? And yes, they are able to, but I think not everyone probably is able to. And I think there is something to having competed before, been there, experienced it, but also not just from a psychological and having done it, but also physiologically, you've got to that level of leanness before. Now the body's more happy that it's been there, done that. Let's go there again. It's not such a huge stress. So yeah, I mean, man, to see Z shredded, oh my gosh, I am excited for that. I cannot wait.
I already said, after this mini cut, right? I basically said to him, I know it's far-fetched now to say that to you, but I even think that you could start a contest prep now and crush your competition this year. Because I'm so convinced about his level of muscle mass, and his level of leanness at the moment, that even if he were to start prepping now, he would be ready on time. Whether it is a good idea is something completely at the side, right? And we decided not to do that because he said that from a life perspective, he will probably not be in a good position to do so, which is absolutely fine, which is totally fine. And this is definitely something I respect. But yeah, everything else is already there. It's just a matter of now getting the last bit off, right? And this is entirely up to the individual then.
And I prefer, just talking about people's attitudes, I much prefer, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but I think I am. I much prefer people who are of Z's attitude, and certainly working with them, who are underconfident rather than people who are overconfident. Because I think you can build people up quite comfortably. And I think Z will build in confidence as he gets leaner. Whereas I think when someone's overconfident and when they shouldn't be that confident, it can bite them in the ass very quickly. And it can hurt quite a lot when they see themselves not doing as well as they can. And I think there's a fine line between being very confident about what you're doing and how things are going, but also you have to be careful not to be kind of overconfident in that regard as well, because that can catch you out.
I think I have to agree with that. Yeah, totally. But there's always a fine line between what is actually being confident realistically and what is being confident unrealistically. Because when someone like, for example, Ronaldo, which I find is one of the greatest football players of all time, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who are saying like, that ignorant bastard, but
Cristiano, right?
Yeah, he is such a complete football player that is unbelievable. He can basically do everything, which is in every kind of sport, right, that requires a team. That is hardly ever seen, that a player nearly has all the skills, right? So that aside, I just wanted to say that when people see someone like him, he has self-confidence, right? He puts it out there and people take it as arrogance, which is, I can see why people perceive it that way, but it's just a trusting and believing in your own capabilities and your own skills. That doesn't mean that when you have such a perception of yourself, that this is actually true. However, there's always some, for example, also the thing about, do you think that you're intelligent? Just now a question to you, Steve. Would you honestly say that you are an intelligent being?
My automatic reaction is like, nah, I'm an idiot. But in reality, I know I am.
See, I mean, and probably, I think there's probably something to say that certain individuals who think that they are somewhat intelligent aren't, right? Such as the Dunning-Kruger effect, that you think and believe you know more than you actually do. But when you are just rational about it and realistic about it, then you would probably say like, yeah, I know that I'm not the smartest individual in the world and there's lots I don't know about. However, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily like stupid or an idiot. And the same applies to your own skills and capabilities when it comes to something like sports. Someone like Ronaldo probably said in the past, like, yeah, I think I'm a really good player, especially like people are telling me that. But I also know that I have a lot to do, a lot of work in front of me so that I can be the best version of myself, because his level of skill didn't come from just leaning back. He's probably a fucking workhorse. He's probably the one who shows up on the field as the first person on the field and leaves the field as the last one. Right? I would bet my ass off that he is someone like that, because most great athletes in the world over the history have been like that. That they were the ones who outperformed and outworked everyone around them, right? And that is the same when it comes to something like bodybuilding. Are you realistic with your own self-perception, right? Because I can say for sure, right, I would absolutely lie to myself and lie to everyone around me if I were so self-confident and saying like, I will beat everyone in my competition when I'm stepping on stage. Because that's not true. That is absolutely not true. And some people out there who have somewhat potential are just too overconfident in their own capabilities and their own skills and stuff like that. However, once again, I think sometimes it's also a good thing to be self-confident in the things that are actually present. However, still then being aware of the things that can be improved upon. I think that is probably the most healthiest thing to have. Like, not being, I don't know, insecure about everything. Still have somewhat of a self-confidence while still knowing your limitations.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, something I've developed is because people ask me kind of what's the goal for you in terms of physique, and I'm often, I would say, I maybe put myself down, but I think I'm realistic in the fact that if I go pro, if I was ever to go pro as a natural bodybuilder, because, well, obviously because no one better turned up, but I think it would be more so a luck thing that no one better turned up, because I don't think I'm set up to be the best bodybuilder in that regard. But I know that I'm very confident in the processes to be my best. So in terms of, I know like what I'm doing, I'm very confident behind my training, behind my nutrition, behind everything that I'm doing. And I'll get what I get in the regard of like my physique and development there. It's an interesting one, because I never like to think, because you have to, there is that fine line of, you don't want to have self-doubt, and like you don't want to put yourself down. You do want to pick yourself up, but also being realistic is important, because like otherwise you're going to set yourself up for failure. I don't know.
But this is where failure then comes in, and I think that this is also the point where failure becomes important, because it reminds you of the things that you need to still improve on and work on. Because when I started studying, for example, right, I thought it's going to be easier than I actually anticipated. I thought that it's going to be easier than it actually was. That's what I wanted to say. Then it turned out like it was more challenging to balance and handle everything at the same time, right? And this is then where I failed, so to speak. But it made me once again then realize and rethink my entire approach to the thing. And this is something that you see with a lot of other things, especially when you're confident in your own skills. Hitting a wall that then leads to failure is actually a blessing, because then you will be able to work upon on that one. And this is the same thing, and I think that Mike once said it even, that when someone is giving you shit testing you or correcting you on something, right? Don't see it as a personal attack against you and your knowledge or anything like that. See it as a blessing that you got corrected now, because now you are one step closer to know more than everyone else.
Yep. Agree. That was a good discussion. Should we get to questions? Otherwise, we could keep going.
By the way, I just want to say I watched Endgame yesterday, and I leave it here because I don't want to do any kind of spoilers.
I heard, I've had really mixed feedback. I've seen some people say it was amazing.
Yeah, I've seen it as well.
And you obviously didn't rate it. I'm hoping I see it this weekend, but I have been keeping up with Game of Thrones, so I won't give out any spoilers.
Me
there.
Too.
Oh, you
because
have?
This time around I thought that because it's the last season, and the likelihood that spoilers just come through is too high. So this time I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to watch the episodes when they come out.
I can discuss them with you then.
Yeah. So I watched that, and so because I thought, this is just my personal opinion, and guys, just look at my arm and my side. I have tattoo heroes and villains actually tattooed on my body. So that topic is kind of really important to me. It's not like I'm such a person who is like, okay, you destroyed everything. But I think that Endgame was a painfully mediocre movie. Unfortunately, I really, really wish I could have said like that was an amazing movie. In my opinion, it wasn't. The good thing is, though, that they didn't try to copy Infinity Wars or try to do Infinity Wars 2. They actually tried to tell a different story, try to actually make it a little bit more emotional, so I don't give any kind of spoilers or so, but make it a little bit more emotional and all that kind of stuff. But for my taste, they didn't really achieve that, and there were some. Unfortunately, I really do hate saying that, because I absolutely loved Infinity Wars. It was an amazing, amazing movie. Also, how they build up Thanos and all that kind of stuff. It was amazing, really. But there were also so many what the fuck moments which is not positive, not in the sense of Game of Thrones what the fuck moments, where it was so unexpected that you're just losing your mind. But it was like, oh God, is that now? Are you serious now that you're doing something like that? That does nothing for the story. And if you really try to do something or deliver us some kind of message with that, sorry, but that wasn't cool at all. And there were so many scenes like these. I don't want to talk about that now, what scenes that were. I can do that later on so that people actually understand where I'm coming from, because I have the feeling that with many people I already talked about who's seen that movie already, who found that actually good, and when I said that, they could actually see the point.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when I was sitting with Katie in the movie, I always then chatted with her beside that, right? There was one scene she didn't even notice, and I was like, holy shit, that was so cringeworthy, so absolutely cringeworthy. What was going on at there right now? She was like saying, "Oh, I didn't even notice until you told me." Yeah, and
we want your reviews. Comment below. I want to hear how you liked it. Is Pascal full of shit?
Thor was the absolutely most amazing character of them all. He was amazing. You will love that, Steve. No, you will love that. He was. God, he was good, eh? So, yeah, let's move on to the questions. And the first one is from Brett Freeman, who will also be participating at the London seminar in 2 weeks. Tickets are still left, and you can find the link to some tickets in the description below or now up here. So, Brett Freeman asks, I'm not following the MEV to MRV style and tend to progress via reps weight over time. When would you say is an appropriate time to add weekly sets to muscle groups? At the moment, for muscle groups such as chest and biceps, I rarely get sore and tend to recover fairly well, but don't want to add sets for the sake of adding sets. Thanks, and see you in May. So there you go. So Steve, do you want to go ahead, mate?
Yeah, I guess I can tackle this one. So I know Brett. So he actually lives very close to me. So I've met him a few times at the gym here. Really nice guy, and I would say, when is it appropriate? It's kind of difficult. It's not a case of it's ever... Yeah, I don't know what to say here. So in terms of for him, it sounds like some of his muscle groups are recovering fine and they are amply recovered. Therefore, potentially, in terms of when we're talking about maximum recoverable volume over weeks, they could potentially benefit from a bit more. If he's progressing at a fine pace and he's happy with it, then possibly he doesn't need to. But if he wants to potentially progress at maybe his best pace, in terms of thinking about maximal adaptive volume, the kind of area between MEV and MRV, then going up a set in those areas, if he's recovering fine and then he sees progression is good and he's got the capability to do so and he's happy to push progression there, I think that could be absolutely appropriate for him. The wrong time to do it and to not add them for the sake of it is if you're kind of getting to a position where you are under recovered, sore all the time, you're having to use very light weights, light loads, and it's just a case of you're like more is better and you potentially performance is even going down. That's when it's really a case of why are you even doing that. I'd say the difference between not adding them and adding them is if you want to potentially get slightly faster progression. That's really the only difference. For some more advanced individuals, that could be the difference between seeing progression and not. If he is never getting sore, potentially never getting pumps, then and his progress is slow to minimal to none, then possibly he needs more to actually benefit and get back into minimum effective volume. But I imagine he's still progressing. It's just maybe not as quick as it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that I have much to add there. And I think that when it comes to adding sets or so, right, this is only one progression model or variation. So you don't have to necessarily do it. I know. I even think that, I don't know if that's truly how 3DMJ guys actually program for their clients, but in the template from the muscle and strength pyramid, I don't think that they are adding sets as well, but they are more so just progressing via load and via repetitions, which is absolutely fine, and via the RER, but this is basically somewhat the same as adding load to the bar, right? But yeah, you can just do a straight progression model. You can do something like double progression. You can do triple progression or something like even quadruple progression. So it actually comes down to what you enjoy the most and what you feel is best suited to also your character and your personality. Because I think that not everyone is honest with themselves when it comes to the recovery portion of things, and also same applies to something like the RAR. Not everyone is able to actually keep like 3 or 4 reps in reserve because they always push it too hard, or they fool themselves in thinking that they are actually at the 3 or 4 RAR, but they aren't really, right? So not every progression model is made for you. So find out what works for you, and I think it's absolutely fine when you don't want to add sets necessarily. Cool. So Dali again. So Dali is asking, I'm currently bulking, aiming for 1 to 1.5% of body weight gain per month, which works out to be 0.35 to 0.5 pounds per week. Sometimes my weight jumps up lots to make it seem like I'm gaining too fast, and then the next week it drops back down a lot to make it seem like I'm actually in a deficit. How do you go about weighing yourself during a bulk? When do you consider changing calories? How do you adjust your calories and macros? When do you decide it's time for a change? Cheers, Steve and Pascal. Love the work you do. How much you have grown. Keep it up. I probably don't think that he's talking about me, but yes. Yeah,
no, grown as in in terms of your I think he means more so like our ability to speak and present and revive stronger. Maybe not just our physique.
Maybe we are always too narrow-minded on the training portion of things. So when it comes, I've really often that this is a case for many of my clients. So typically you see something like that with female athletes, right? That there's a huge fluctuations when it comes to the weekly weigh-ins. However, you see it all the time also with males, even if their lifestyle and their meals and stuff like that are pretty consistent. There's still a fluctuation going on. And to be really honest, it is where past or previous data comes into play. If you don't have that, that's absolutely fine, because, and that is, I think, an unsatisfying answer to you, but this is where trusting the process comes into play. I know that also Mike doesn't like that term, but it is what it is. If you know that you are hitting the nail on the head when it comes to the macros, you know that you aren't going above your macros or under eating, right? When you know that you are training hard, you have it all in check when it comes to the consistency of the training, and you somewhat know that you aren't really gaining, like, I don't know, on 1 week, more than your range, and that is then fat mass, you can be quite certain that it's probably just water weight and all that kind of stuff. And if we take, let's just say theoretically, you are a robot. You are always eating the same meals at the same time during the day. Your body always has the same fluctuations on a day-to-day basis. Like hormonally, everything is always the same from day to day, right? And you're weighing in at the same time. Probably you will still see some fluctuations there. Also, sometimes your digestive rate is also a little bit different. So lots of things that can impact your scale weight readings. So it's just a matter of, okay, tracking the data over a longer period of time. When it comes to gaining, I like to take a longer period of time before making any kind of rash decisions when it comes to adjustments. I know it's sometimes hard for clients to hear that, to like, okay, yes, I know that this week we've jumped really highly up in weight, but that's not a big deal. Even if we were to see the same increase next week, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are gaining unnecessary amounts of fat. And then we can still pull back if after 3 weeks it's still continuing to go up like that, right? So, I always like to be patient, to not make any kind of rash decisions. And then you can still pull back or make the adjustments when appropriate. But I don't know, Steve, maybe you have something different take on things.
I thought it was a fantastic answer. The first thing you said was the thing I was immediately comes to mind is when this happens with clients, it's that past data that helps so much, where you can see previous gaining phases, whether and what body weight, what they've been gaining at. You can see previous maintenance, you can see previous cutting. You have a very good idea about where's appropriate in terms of calorie intake, and if they're being on point, it is a case of just trust that things are probably going the right direction. And I think a few people have talked about this kind of opposite whoosh effect, where it's like it's a growth spurt effect, where sometimes it just comes up. I literally had this with a client this past week where his body weight spiked up 2 pounds last week, and then this week it came down 0.5 pound. It's like, well, when you average those two out, you're actually gaining it at the kind of appropriate pace for what we want. And this is always what I'm doing. I'm looking at past data and past history to then give a prediction of where we're going. And I'm completely the same. Adjustments are very, very infrequent when you're in a massing phase. The fact is we don't adapt upwards that quickly at all. Maybe when we're coming right out of like comp prep, or actually even then probably not have to, but out of a diet phase, maybe you make more frequent adjustments. But to be honest, at most every 2 weeks. But yeah, it's really something that isn't something you need to worry about too much, and definitely take longer term averages and things like that, especially for females, like you said.
And when we really consider that you know where you're at in regards to your caloric intake, and you know where your maintenance was, right? And let's just say you increase your calories to a 200 to 300 surplus on a day-to-day basis, and you overshoot, you know that you are kind of in that range, right? But you see the scale weight coming up by a long shot, and you get a little bit doubtful about whether you've increased the calories too much. Think about it, right? How likely is it then that you are gaining a significant amount of fat along with that? Even if you're gaining now a little bit quicker, right? Do you really believe that a 200 to 300 calorie surplus will yield then kind of, 200 to 300 grams of fat gain or so? Unlikely. Even if the scale weight is indicating a more rapid weight gain, it's pretty unlikely that the synthesis of new fat tissue is actually happening that rapidly when you are not going wild with your caloric intake.
Perfect.
Cool. So, I think we covered all of his 3 questions there. So Mitch Albach, does your training volume or exercise type, compound or isolation, change in the off-season to a prep?
Cool. So that's basically asking, does exercise selection change off-season to contest prep? And what I would say there is not really. This is kind of like the question of, do you train differently during contest prep to off-season? And again, it's kind of like not really until maybe the latter portion of prep, where things are it's just a unique situation in which people who do general cutting and bulking cycles never get into this scenario. It's literally just for probably female physique competitors, so not really bikini, probably don't get to this point where they need to make these sort of adjustments. And then male bodybuilders, female bodybuilders, male physique competitors, in which you get to a scenario where you really have to look at your fatigue to stimulus ratio, essentially, whereby you get to a point where your kind of minimum effective volume in terms of what you need to do to produce any growth is quite high because of the fact you're so lean, you've been dieting for so long. And then your maximal recoverable volume is not that high either because you are so lean, have been dieting for so long. So then you find you have to be really careful about potentially your way of exercising, the way you attack hypertrophy, and exercise selection comes into this. So whereby in an off-season or general fat loss phase, something like a deadlift might be an excellent movement for you towards the end of prep. You may find that the stimulus to fatigue ratio is outweighing, in that it's providing a lot of fatigue for maybe not as much stimulus, and you might be better off doing something like a Romanian deadlift, something along those lines. This is similar to like when someone gets very, very strong at deadlifts, for example. It might be wise for them to think about, maybe it's just wise going to like a deficit deadlift or a Romanian deadlift, something like this, because the fatigue to stimulus ratio is just superior. A lot of the time, I think the issue comes where potentially your leverages change, you've got less fat in places to kind of cushion joints, literally, where sitting down becomes uncomfortable, squatting deeply with a barbell on your back becomes uncomfortable. These sort of things can quite easily happen. And actually even potentially for bikini competitors, if they just feel very frail at this time, and they've been dieting for quite a while, and they don't have kind of readily available kind of blood glucose or even just kind of glycogen stored in muscles, they can feel quite like fatigued and lightheaded. And even doing kind of big compound lifts can be quite challenging just from a kind of neuromuscular standpoint. It can kind of be a bit more effective and efficient to get into like a leg press or a Smith machine and just bust it out. And you don't have to worry so much about technique and form, and it can be a little bit safer on the physique. So that's what I would say. Those are the only real changes to exercise selection, is just towards the very end of maybe a contest prep or long diet, whereby you maybe are feeling like, this movement, I love it normally, but it's just not providing me a good stimulus to fatigue. Maybe just you don't feel very safe doing it. Psychologically, you feel a bit worn and you feel a bit better just getting into a leg press or something and not having to think too much about technique. That's when these sort of adjustments can come into play.
No, absolutely. I have nothing more to add there. Just one thing, and that is funny enough that when I'm getting leaner, I feel more comfortable in squatting than when I'm getting fatter. It's weird.
Until you get contest prep lean, and then you're like, fuck
yeah,
this,
probably.
We'll find out next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, hopefully. God damn, 2 times already. So Kian, one of my clients. Other than water, what liquids count towards hydration goals? For example, I tend to only drink half a gallon of milk. No, water, he said. Living that, what's it called again? Fuck me.
Go mad.
What's it called again? Go mad lifestyle, right? Drinking half a gallon of water per day. However, I get a lot of added hydration through herbal teas, sports drinks, and even the water added to my oats. I eat a lot of oats, so this adds up. I can confirm that. My urine is generally clear when my urine is generally clear with a tinge of yellow to it. Which liquids would you say count towards hydration goals and which do not? And I know Steve always has the best answer to it, and even got a shout out lately over on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
when it comes to the cut of the pee.
So I think he answered his own question, because he kind of talked about how he gets a lot of hydration through these other elements. So this is funny. This is something people really get confused about, in that they think it's just like water. Nothing else counts. It's like, no. Everything counts. So, and I have a lot of experience of this, because obviously when I had hypoatremia, I think that's what it's called, when I had low sodium levels, I had to be really careful about what I was eating, down to the fact that I remember having watermelon, and I just went wild on this watermelon because I was ignorant to the fact that this is obviously going to hydrate me and dilute my sodium levels. And I felt like crap the next day and I couldn't go to work. So, everything counts. So the fruit, the vegetables you're having, tea, coffee, every single little thing counts. So like the oats, that will count as well. And like Pascal said, and like he referred to, the color of your pee is a great indicator, in that you're kind of looking for 3 to 5 clear, pretty diluted peas per day. Especially around training, it's important to be hydrated. It's funny, I think I am normally a little bit overhydrated, in that I very rarely get a yellow pee. There are things that can impact it as well. I think some foods
only right in the morning or so.
Oh really?
Like after getting up in the morning, can be a little bit rusty. I
pee so freaking much. I think I just love drinking. Now I can.
Yeah. Are you wearing diapers in the
I wish that would be really convenient.
Mate, I was just thinking that just recently, because Hugo, he doesn't give a fuck about the diapers, right? It's just like he's shitting in his pants. So in his diapers, it's just, he is 2.5 years old. So it's nothing uncommon that he's still walking around in diapers. But I also know kids already who are clean, quote unquote, since the age of 1. Right? And he doesn't give a fuck about that. He's shitting in his diapers. It smells disgusting. Walking around playing with that. And I was just thinking, how convenient must that be because I always get up in the middle of the night because I have to go to the loo, like twice. Once or twice. That is just the norm, right? And how convenient it must be to just be in your bed. I think at that point, the automation will just kick in, that you don't even get awake anymore because you have to pee, because it's kind of protective, right? We always, those kind of moments where you are dreaming about going to the toilet because you have to pee so desperately. And I think that when you're always wearing diapers and then you just let it flow in the middle of the night, some point you will not even awake from that anymore. How convenient that must be. I mean, it will be a little bit weird with your girlfriend on the side and you're just peeing in your diapers, and you are just a grown adult at the age of 30. But I mean,
they'd have to be super absorbent for the amount of
sleep
pee.
Is important. Sleep is important. Just show the people like Why We Sleep from Matthew Walker, and then justify your behavior with wearing diapers in the middle of the night, because sleep is so mandatory for a good, healthy, and lovely life.
It's true. This has weirdly reminded me. I said I had bad sleep last night. I woke up and I kid you not, I dribbled a huge amount. It was ridiculous. Like, I just had this puddle of like, I never dribble. And I just woke up, I had all this dribble like on my beard and shit. And I was just like, what the fuck is this?
But this is more common when you are doing like a nap in the middle of the day out of feeling. When you aren't really falling asleep that much, but you can already feel that your body is just relaxing. And then you wake up, oh fuck. You know,
I just flip the pillow, right, I'm going back. It's just this mess.
So, because the fitness industry is always coming up with new gimmicks and gadgets, right? Maybe we should be the ones who are promoting diapers in the middle of the night because of the importance of sleep and for your gains. So, maybe we will see a lot of diaper story posts in the near future. And if that's going to happen in like 1 or 2 years from now, mark our words. We were the inventors of that, or the pioneers, so to speak.
Next question. Do we have time for one more? Yeah.
Yeah. We can do that, I think. Oh, it's a long one.
Oh,
it's a long one. Let me just check the next one. It's a long one as well. From Z even.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's also from with adding sets from week to week. We take that one from Candice. Sounds like a porn star, and that suits me just fine as the last question here to end the show with. Candice. So, can muscles change shape through hypertrophy training in a mass phase without actually having changed the amount of lean tissue of the muscle?
No. Simple. I remember it came from Nick Tuminello. I remember he had like a quote of saying you cannot change the shape of muscles, but you can make some muscles bigger and smaller. So by looking different. So yeah, easy answer really. Yeah,
I mean, when you also think about what muscles are and how they are structured, it doesn't make sense that you can change it without adding or somewhat maybe disrupting them, so ripping them apart or anything like that and reattach them. Other than that, I don't see how it could change without the add of synthol or something like that.
100%.
All right. So yeah, that's about. I would say that's about it. The other questions are all too long, but we will definitely cover those from Ivayo So this is for one of the first names I'm struggling with. Ivayo Amuchev. I have no idea whether this was remotely correct. But anyway, let's leave it here, Steve. So the last thing I have to say is people will probably still enjoy Endgame because in it for itself, it's an entertaining movie. 400 million into that. It is there to be entertaining, right? It's just like New Year's Eve. Like New Year's Eve. People expect the world, right? Everyone is like, oh man, this needs to be the most amazing night. And everyone is then going home quite disappointed. Actually, it should be like that. You are supposed to go in there and not expect anything at all and be like, oh yeah, that was actually quite a decent night we had, right? So yeah, people will probably still enjoy that. It has some good scenes in there, but make your own or draw your own picture there. So don't let my negative review influence you whatsoever, hopefully.
I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for what's going to be the next supplement on the market, Giant's Milk.
Yeah, exactly.
We may get some people understanding that one.
That character, he is the best. He is the best. Oh God, how he came into the room, right, and then Lady Bree.
Guys, thank you for listening. We will catch you very soon. Take care.
Cheers, guys.